Good morning, race fans, and welcome to Laurel Park and the 37th Jim McKay Maryland Million. I'm Tim Tulloch, joined by Dan Illman on loan from the Daily Racing Form for today's show. Dan, great to be here and great to have you here.
It's great to be here. Jim McKay Maryland Million Saturday is one of my favorite days on the racing calendar. We celebrate the breeders, owners, trainers, jockeys, everybody on the backside that works tirelessly 24/7, 365. This is their day, and from a selfish standpoint, this is a great betting day. Full fields, competitive fields, industry low 12% takeout on the late pick 5. Beautiful weather. I'm sold.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I equate it to when Penny Tweedy used to talk about Riva Ridge and Secretariat, she would say, Secretariat was America's horse. Preakness might be Maryland's American race, but the Maryland Million is Maryland's race, and Maryland's a race day, so it's very, very important. Can't beat the weather, no doubt about that. As you mentioned, the field's unbelievable. This may be, and you and I have seen a bunch of Maryland Millions, this may be the best Maryland Million card ever.
Best Maryland Million card ever, deepest Maryland Million card ever, and a great edition of the Classic.
There you go. I'm just happy to be with a guy who still uses paper and actually knew who Jim McKay was, because some of my co-hosts are a little young. And they're, who's Jim McKay? Very, very important figure, not only in broadcasting, but in Maryland racing. Look, we have a little match board here. We got a $100 match. Let's hit that. $100 deposit, match the bonus. Get your $100 in, and first bet will match it. Promo code MDMillion22. Just visit firstbet.com/Maryland Million, and they are going to hook you up. We talked about the weather and the conditions a little bit to Dan, but let's go ahead and have a quick look outside, and what you're going to see is just absolute gorgeous conditions.
Oh, you can't beat this weather. It is an absolutely perfect fall day. Temperature's going to be around 69, 70 degrees. A little bit of cloud. I'll take it any day of the week in October.
No doubt about that. The action's already started here at Laurel Park. People are filing in. The kids are already having a great time. But let's talk a little horse racing, Dan, and let's get into this big 12-race card. We're going to start with race number 1. It kicks off the early pick 5, as always, a mandatory payout in the early pick 5, 50-cent minimum, 12% industry low takeout on the early pick 5. Race 1, mile of 16th on the grass. This is a starter $50,000 purse for 3-year-olds and up, which has started for $16,000 or less since last October 2021. We'll start with your top pick in here, Dan, and that is the 10 down out toward the outside, Dr. Ferber for Joanne Schenkel. 0 for 5 on the grass, but coming off a lifetime best race.
I'm looking for prices all day long with these deep fields. Your top pick, the number 6, a pretty good year, is way the horse to beat. I'm going to be using my top 3 picks in the first leg of the pick 5. Dr. Ferber, to me, though, while he's winless on turf, he's been very competitive on the surface, and his last couple of races on dirt, much improved. The key to this race is going to be pace. He is a one-run closer, but I think he's a better horse now than he was when he was on the grass earlier this year, and he's going to be a giant price.
There's no doubt about that. 3 of his last 4 races, he's run lifetime best figures, and you might be right about that. He's a better horse today than he was earlier this year, and he might take to the grass. I do have the 6 on top. Pretty good year for Michael Pino. Dan, you gave us a stat on Michael Pino. Let's have a quick look at it, and then how does it go?
Michael Pino, since July the 12th, off the claim, 7 for 20. That's 35% winners, almost a $3 return on investment. He's done well off the claim. We'll talk about For the Love of Bourbon later.
This horse comes out of a dirt race where he ran quite well, winning and running a decent number, but the 3 previous races on the turf were strong efforts against probably what were tougher groups.
Yeah, absolutely, against tougher groups. And why I think Pino claimed this horse is for this race in mind. He has great tactical speed. He's not a one-run closer like my top pick. He'll work at a trip.
He only got beat 2 lengths while running 5th in this race last year. Actually, the Maryland Million Turf, he got beat 2 lengths last year, and this is certainly a little bit easier than the Maryland Million Turf. 10-6-14-1 for Dan, and the opener 6-1-8-13 for myself as we move to race number 2. Race 2 kicks off the early pick 4. I put together a quick ticket for it. This is how I played it, $18 ticket. I'm going to go deep in race number 1. We already talked about it, plenty of ways to go. 5, 6, 7 and 12. Race 3, I'm going to single. That's Grateful Bread. Looks very, very tough there. Race 4, I'm using the 4, 7, and 9. And in race 5, the 1, 3, 6. $18 ticket on the early pick 4. Race 2 is for 3-year-olds and upward, which has started for a claiming price of $10,000 or less since last October. This one's going 7/8 of a mile on the main track, and we'll start with your top pick, Dan. That is the 6, the Wolfman. Joanne Schenkel trains, Javion Toledo rides, and why not? This is a horse that's done a little wrong in 2022.
Razor sharp form right now for the Wolfman, who has a little bit of back class as well and a lot of versatility. You'll note that 2 starts back, he came from off the pace to win. I love how they rode him last time out. They took the race to race favorite Rockenfellers, made the lead, kept on going. This pace will be faster. This race is tougher. This horse is sharp.
He's very, very sharp. Rockenfeller's a tough horse to beat. That's an older horse who's in very, very good form, and the Wolfman's run back-to-back lifetime best races. I go to the outside to the 12, Laddie Liam, 4-1 on the line. J-Ron Barbosa gets the call for Hugh McMahon. This one's turning back in very, very good form over his last 3 races, and he's coming off 2 lifetime best races.
And one of the times he's gone route to sprint in his career, he won the Maryland Million Sprint. He is very comfortable turning back in distance and is another horse with a little bit of tactical speed.
He's 1 for 2 going 7/8 of a mile, and he shows a nice number there, an 82 Beyer speed figure while going 7/8 of a mile. Race 3 is the start of our stakes action this afternoon. This is the Maryland Million Turf Sprint, $100,000 on the line, going 5.5 furlongs on the grass. And I guess we have to start with the 5, Grateful Bread. Both you and I have this one on top. He is your defending champion. And let's take a look back at that race from October 22nd of last year, the Maryland Million Sprint.
And Grateful Bread is a horse that has speed. He can sit. In this race, he is in complete control turning into the stretch. And remember, we have a long stretch of the second wire finish here at Laurel, and Grateful Bread keeps churning on. Madison Myers has done an amazing job with this horse. You remember early in his career, he was a little bit of a nutball. He wouldn't go into the gate. He wouldn't relax. He relaxes a lot better now.
This is a very, very nice horse. Now, he's winless since this race last year, but he's been running very, very well against what you and I both consider to be a bit tougher company. He probably gets a tad of class relief in this group today.
I would agree. Last time out, he was in against Karatari, who we know is an open stakes class horse. Yep. We saw that on Preakness Day. And he might have been compromised a little bit, Grateful Bread, by being down inside behind a slow pace. He's outside here. He'll be in the thick of things turning for home.
It's certainly a good draw for Grateful Bread this afternoon. The 2 is Skies Not Falling. Make the rider Paco Lopez. Pay attention to rider changes today. We will give you some of the rider changes, but make sure you listen to Dave Rodman after we're off. There's plenty of rider changes on today's card. But make the rider on Skies Not Falling, Paco Lopez. Michael Trombetta trains. Dan, you brought us a stat on Michael Trombetta off this type of layoff.
Michael Trombetta, second off a 6-month layoff or greater. He's 8 for his last 28, 29%, a $4.84 return on investment. He didn't run very well off the layoff, Skies Not Falling. I have a feeling that race was simply used as a prep run, and the stat fee speaks for itself. Yeah,
it was a tough heat, too. Karatori coming that Laurel Dash that particular day, but he did only get beat a length and a half last year. When am I looking at the right horse? Yes. He only got beat. He was second to Grateful Bread in last year's turf race. I think he improves off that race, that return race, which was a tough effort up there at Pimlico. The 7 is Island Philo. This is a filly taking on the boys here this afternoon. Why not? This is a filly who's in very, very good form right now.
She did not have a good trip at Colonial Downs in that Camtown Stakes. She didn't break well. She was steadied in and among horses. She got to the outside, and she was running late. Will she get enough pace against a better field? That's the question. The price will be there.
But look, she ran just behind Spun Glass and Ella Nation in the Jamelia. She only got beat a half length for the whole thing on that particular day. Those are a couple runners, Spun Glass and Ella Nation. I think they're both in tomorrow in an open allowance race on the grass. Let's move to race number 4. This is the first of our juvenile races this afternoon. This is the Maryland Million Nursery going 3/4 of a mile for 2-year-olds. And Dan, both you and I, actually you have the 11 Wild Hunch on top. This is a horse who's never run a bad one. We're going to look at his really good one. This is October 13th up at Delaware Park when he broke his maiden quite impressively.
This is the maiden win, and what I liked about it was he was way more professional. In his prior start, he was hanging on his left lead for a long time. Here he made the lead on the sloppy track. He changed leads on cue, and he is off to the races. This is a big performance. He's coming back on short notice, but it's worth noting that this barn, winning 20% since July 23rd, 2 of those 14 winners came on 8 days less rest or less.
That was on a sealed sloppy track, or good sealed track that afternoon at Delaware Park by Great Notion out of a stormy Atlantic mare. Moisture in the racetrack certainly didn't help. He's going to have to duplicate that race on a fast main track today. Earned a really big number, 77 in that event. I have the 4 Heldish on top for Brittany Russell. Sheldon Russell rides, and we got a chance to catch up with Heldish's owner, Mr. Justin Horowitz, earlier this week.
Well, it was a little off schedule and plan when he broke so poorly. He's shown speed in his first 2 races and was on the lead, and he ended up last out of the gate. But what he showed us was that he can pass horses and passed everyone except the winner. So it was great to see a new dimension from him, to show the versatility, to see him overcome some challenges that he hadn't seen in a race. I feel great because we're in the race. You can't win if you're not in the starting gate. I'm not stupid enough to think anything about other than I'm so lucky to be here.
And look, sometimes, Dan, you learn things by mistake, by default. Didn't get away well, ran in behind horses, took dirt, came with some finish. And fast horses, a lot of fast horses need to learn to do that, because as you progress, the horses don't get slower.
And these babies, they're learning and progressing day by day. It's nice to have that in the topic, to know that you can sit and rate. This is a great story. This is Justin's first horse, first winner immediately out of the box, and you got Brittany here who's winning at a high percentage with everything.
It's an easy game, my friend. It's an easy game.
He's going to learn.
Yeah, he'll learn. He'll learn, but good luck to Justin this afternoon. Let's take a look at the 7, Johnny Z's from Albany. They call this Maryland Million Day, but they might as well call it Dale Capuano's Day at the races. He's the winningest trainer in Maryland Million history. He has 9 horses in today. He's going to start here with Johnny Z's from Albany, who's got very, very good form.
14 lifetime wins in the Maryland Million for Dale Capuano. He likes both of his horses in this race. I had a chance to talk to him earlier this week. Johnny Z from Albany's faced really tough company. He caught that horse coming back from Saratoga 2 back, and Recruiter looks like a nice one for Cal Lynch.
And we did catch up with Dale Capuano also, and this is what he had to say about both of his entries. You have sound. That's okay. Let's move on. That's the wrong race.
Well, I can tell you what he said about
Go
last
ahead.
weekend
There
when
you
I
go.
talked to him. He really likes
Live
Lost
TV,
Weekend.
gotta
He
love
likes
it.
Johnny Z from Albany. He really likes Lost Weekend. The race last time out of Delaware impressed Dale. He wanted to get to the Delaware stake, so he ran him 4 furlongs at Timonium to get him there. And then last time out, Dale was so impressed that this horse was in tight in between horses. That's a lot to ask for a second-time starting 2-year-old. He stayed on. Dale likes this horse.
Yeah, and big number up there at Delaware Park. 79 Beyer speed figure for a 2-year-old. That's a big, big figure. If he runs back, look, if he runs back to that, they're all running for second at the end of the day. But he's going to have to do that here at Laurel Park. Race 5, Maryland Million Distaff Starter Handicap, 7/8 of a mile on the main track. Dan, both you and I have the 3 Marvelous on top of 4. Carlos Mencia, Georgie Ruiz gets the call. Hey, look, this is a filly who's been in really good form this year. She's 10 for 11 in the money.
Sort of a pet handicapping angle for me is horses turning back to 7 furlongs. I think it's a perfect route to sprint distance, and that's going on for Marvelous here, a horse who's hit the board in his last 7 races. Last time out, 4 wide early, dropped inside, went outside again. Kind of a tour of the racetrack in a race where the pace held up. I think gets more pace this time.
Coming out of a first-level allowance condition race where she ran quite well, only getting beat 2 lengths while running third. The one Targe, I guess you can call, this one's the now horse right now for Gina Perry, claimed 3 races ago, winner of 2 in a row with 2 back-to-back lifetime best efforts.
Now, I wonder if this horse is just a little bit dressed up. Yes, this horse is in very sharp form, but when he won at Pimlico, I thought was just on the best part of the track. I thought the rail was good that day, and we know this horse loves a sloppy track. Got it last time out, not getting it here.
Yeah, off the turf event, that always softens up a little bit, but it did stay together with 9 horses that particular day, but we'll see if Targe can run back to those previous efforts over the last couple months. Race 6, Maryland Million Ladies. Handicap 108, mile and eighth, $125,000 here this afternoon. We'll start with our top pick. Dan, both you and I are in agreement. It's the 7 Coconut Cake. Make the rider Sheldon Russell. This one's returning off of a short break. This is another mare, another runner this afternoon who's winless basically in the last 2 years, but she's been running against some tough runners and firing some good figures.
How much more money can I lose on Coconut Cake? I'm going to find out today because I'm going to try her again. I'm a big fan of this horse. She's very versatile. She runs well sprinting on dirt. She runs well longing on the turf. That was a tough field she was in against last time out, and she was in with a big chance turning into the stretch now. I talked to Tim Keefe earlier this week. This horse had a little bit of a setback, which necessitated the layoff, but he feels she's training awesome coming into it.
Yeah, I think we caught up with Tim Keefe. We did catch up with this trainer, Olivia, so let's take a listen to Tim Keefe in Coconut Creek.
I think probably the fact that I've finally realized the preference that she wants to run on the grass and go a distance of ground. You know, she's done both for us. You know, she's won short, she's won long, she's won on the dirt, she's won on the turf. She has a preference going along on the turf. She last ran July, gave a bit of a break after that. We've always been pointing towards this race on Maryland Million Day. It's the biggest race for us of the year. It's, you know, all the owners and Maryland connections like to be out here on Maryland Million Day.
Coconut Creek coming off that little bit of a break as Tim Keefe spoke to, but as we talked about, coming off a lifetime best effort in the Big Dreyfus, only getting beat 2 lengths. We're running fourth going today's distance of a mile and eighth. The one, my thoughts, we both have a little of interest in for Tim Woolley. Ricardo Chapi gets the call. Another runner coming off a little bit of a break, but 2 of her last 3.
Looked good posting a nice trip to win that Fort Indian Town Gap Stakes. Beat 2 next out winners that day. One horse came back to win at Aqueduct, Belmont at Aqueduct, however you want to call that now. I love this post position for this horse. I think the tactical speed allows this horse to work out a prime pace-tracking, ground-saving trip.
The 2 is a Maldives model for Aaron McClellan. Tyler Connor is going to come in for the ride. He's ridden this one almost exclusively over her last 12 starts. 2 back, 81 best by her speed figure that day. Not even her best, but 81 on the turf in that second level allowance race at Penn National. Adds the blinkers today with some good works.
I think with that blinkers, we might see this horse be a little bit sharp, and you mentioned the Beyer speed figure. Runs back to that number is going to be real tough.
We're going to be right back. We're going to take a little bit of a break. When we come back, we'll talk about the second half of the 37th Jim McKay Maryland Million.
We're ready for the start. They're off.
Welcome back to Today at the Races on Jim McKay Maryland Million Day. Tim Tulloch, Dan Illman. Let's take a look at the second half of our card. And the second half of our card starts with race 7. This is a Maryland Million Distaff. $100,000 on the line, going 7/8 of a mile. And we'll start with the number 4. This is Courageous Girl. This is your top pick. Make the rider Javion Toledo, coming off a little bit of a break. We haven't seen this one since July.
Little bit of a reach with this horse because this is a very tough field with the likes of Field Esprit. Graham Motion's got a nice one in here. Courageous Girl's been coming on, is going to come off the layoff, but it's not exactly been by design, but not because of an injury. I talked to her trainer earlier this week. He said, trying to get this horse to win a second level allowance race, nothing fills. You know the feeling, Tim.
Sure.
At the end of the day, they're running her here. She seems to be training well, and she ran well last time out at Delaware, albeit against a short field. I want a price. I think she's going to sit in behind what could be a fast pace.
Yeah, you have a filly that goes long, and you're trying to find a second level allowance race. Sometimes it's impossible to find. So yes, I feel for Horatio to pass. I have the 6 on top. This is Wicked Hot for Graham Motion. Fergal Lynch gets the call. And this one's been running very, very well. 7 starts, 2 wins, 2 seconds, 2/3. We're going to look at a recent second. This is August 7th at Saratoga, where she ran a lifetime best 81, and she got down and dirty under Trevor McCarthy.
Oh, she at Saratoga in this race with Wicked Hot. This is a filly that's got a lot of ability. There's no doubt about that. She ran well in her prior two starts. Her last race at Saratoga wasn't very good, but in here, you see the number, you see the gameness, you see the determination. She's got a lot of upside. I think you can make the argument we haven't seen her best yet. We might have seen the best of some of these other fillies.
Yeah, no, I don't think we've seen her best yet. I think we could throw that last race. It was on the
Absolutely.
slop at Saratoga. We throw that one right out. Reunites with Fergal Lynch, who has 2 wins on this filly, and one time he did get beat. He got beat a dirty head in debut. The 2 is Malibu Beauty. We'll pay a little attention to this one. She was second behind Hello Beautiful. Ever hear of her? In the last year's Maryland Million Distaff Sprint. Look, her recent races of Delaware have been okay.
Gary Capuano's managed her beautifully. He's entered in about 16 different spots, it seems, every week, and he finds the right one, usually off-turf races at Delaware with big pots, and Malibu Beauty wins. Malibu Beauty can sprint as well. She's going to be on the chase going after Fille d'Esprit, and she is in very good form. I would not sleep on her.
Yeah, and you cannot sleep on the one Fille d'Esprit, because there's no doubt in my mind if she can bring her A game from the inside going 7/8 of a mile, they're all running for second.
She gave millionaire Frank Srocket all she could handle 2 starts back in that graded stakes race at Charlestown. I talked to a lot of trainers that ran at Parks the day Fille d'Esprit raced. They said, that's not your typical sloppy track. That was a sticky track. Horses were slipping and sliding. I don't think she liked it.
Yeah, and you see plenty of horses, and we both do, that go to Parks and simply don't like it, whether it's fast or sloppy or anything. So I'm going to give her a pass there. And look, she's a gritty kind of mare. She still ran third and only got beat 5 lengths, so it's not like she got her head caved in that particular day. A very, very good Maryland Million Distaff this afternoon. Race 8, second of our juvenile races this afternoon. Maryland Million Lassie, $100,000, 3/4 of a mile on the main track. And Dan, both you and I are on the 6. Chickiness for Jamie Ness. Jaime Rodriguez gets the call. Look, she keeps running into a filly, undefeated filly named Bound by Destiny.
Bound by Destiny is now 4 for 4. She has 2 stakes wins, and she's doubtlessly one of the best juvenile fillies in the entire region. And Chickiness keeps getting closer to her in her races. In her last start, she hopped back to her left lead in the stretch. That's kind of her right now, but she never stopped trying. Ness was very impressed with that when I talked to him earlier this week. The pace is going to be fast in here. We're going to get a test for Chickiness, but I think there are no Bound for Destinies in here, although I do like Malibu Moonshine a bit, as well as the number 5.
Well, I agree. There's no Bound for Destinies here. The filly's shown the ability to lay off of a little bit of a hot pace. Is there class relief here this afternoon for this filly?
Well, considering that Bound for Destiny's run some very, very good figures, I think that some of these other fillies are still trying to figure out where they are from a class standpoint. Are they going to rise to being stakes horses, or will they settle at something less? I think Chickiness's last 2 races have proved that, at least as for right now, she fits with these horses.
Let's talk about the 10 Malibu Moonshine, because she is no slouch. Broke her maiden first time out at Pimlico over the slop. She won that one easily by 6 lengths. She earned a decent figure for a maiden 2-year-old filly. She comes in here with 3 good works for Charlton Baker.
She'd been working very, very well in New York coming for this race. Charlie Baker had this horse ready, obviously, because she didn't break very well, and that's a tough ask over a wet track to get that kickback in her face. She came real wide into the stretch, a little bit green with her lead changes, understandable in the first lifetime start. That was a big effort. You know something, that 57 buyer, she can build on that.
I would think she's going to move forward this afternoon's second start. And you're right, she got a lot of education that first time out. She gets stuck in behind horses this afternoon. Shouldn't be an issue. I expect her to get away from the gate a little bit better this afternoon also.
I agree completely.
The 9th race, Maryland Million Turf, 1 1/8, $125,000 for 3-year-olds and upward. And we're going to start with the number 1, your top of pick in here, Dan. This is Street Copper. Michael Trombetta, Johan Rosado gets the call. Look, most recent race was a step in the right direction, no doubt about that.
It was. I'm not sure if I really loved it. It was at a middle distance. He was sort of in mid-pack. He split horses. He had a look. And turning for home, I wanted him to run a little harder in the stretch. It is worth noting, he only got beat ahead in this race last year, and it's the one and only time he ran 1 1/8 miles. I think a mile and an eighth is going to be very, very good for him. But this race is going to come down to pace, isn't it? Because Street Copper is one of a plethora of horses with no early speed.
No early speed at all. Yeah, I can't disagree. I mean, his races lately have been pretty uninspiring. But he did show up in this race last year, and he can show up from time to time. Even that race 3 races ago at Saratoga, even though it wasn't a great result, 5th, it was a good effort only getting beat 3 lengths.
He's been facing good fields and some salty horses. I think the runner-up from his last race came back to pop a big number on dirt, something like a 92 Beyer speed
American
figure
Dior.
running off the screen. So he's been facing good competition. We know he fits with these horses. This is a very, very tough race.
Let's talk about my top pick. This is Midnight Hauler for Bernie Houghton. David Cora is going to come in for the call. We're going to look back. August 19th, this was a big win in the Lebanon Valley at Penn National. We're going to pick this one up at the quarter pole.
This horse is just in consistently good form right now. In his races at Penn National, you're going to notice that he finishes, and he finishes strong. But unlike some of these true closers in this race, Tim, he's a tactical horse. He's a mid-pack horse, and I think if the pace is slow, he's going to run very, very well.
He comes running this particular afternoon. You see him, he's just sticking those blue blinkers into the picture. He's going to run down the 10 horse, the gray horse, on the inside. That was a good-looking effort, fired a good number that particular day. Look, this is a runner. He's 14 for 19 in the money with 6 wins for Bernie Houghton. The 8, we have to talk about the 8. This is Cannon's Roar. Another one, winless in the last 2 years. However, he's just missed the winner's circle in this race the past 2 years, and he's been running against tougher all summer.
As a fan, I'm rooting for him because he's a
Sure.
warrior. He shows up each and every time. Don't be fooled by the fact that he hasn't won in 2 years. It's not a character defect for Cannon's Roar. He's not a hanger. He just happens to catch bad trips in some races or some very good horses.
Sure.
Last time out was a bad trip. Floated 4 wide first turn, 3 wide second turn, and as always, kept trying. He's going to sit a great trip today.
He should sit a great trip. Look, you're right. English Tavern, Nathan Detroit, good at the time, and Nick Papagiorgio,
Decorated
good at the
Invader,
time.
Grade 1 stakes winner.
Exactly. So he's been running into some good horses, and we know Dale Capuano likes to win races on Maryland Million Day. Race 10, Maryland Million Sprint. We do have some scratches of a little bit of note in here, so I'm going to let you know. Take out the 4 Locomotive, the 7 Hemp. Take out the 12 Air Token, the 13 Elusive Agent, and the also eligibles. Let's start with the 3. Airport, Jamie Ness. This one, talk to me about this this pick here, Dan. Look, he fired a huge race against softer company at Parks in his most recent start.
This is a little bit of a reach, Tim. I will admit
That's
that.
okay.
This is a horse that earlier in his career.
They call me a chalk eater, so just
This is a horse earlier in his career that showed a little bit of ability. Ness claimed this horse. He told me he was a morning glory. He would do everything right in his workouts. He'd show up in the afternoon and nothing would happen. Well, it happened last time out. Now, maybe it was a weak field. It was an easy pace that he was on. But if you watch the tape of that race, he ran off and hid from that field in the stretch. Maybe the light bulbs come back on. I like they're wheeling him back in quick notice.
Yeah, and we know that Jamie's horses, once they start getting good, they continue to get good and progress the right direction. So why not take a shot? Speaking of chalk eaters, I'm on the 8-5 morning line favorite. For the Love of Bourbon for Michael Pino. This one has won 5 in a row. We're going to take a look at his 2-back when he won the Banjo Picker Sprint at Parks. This was a good-looking effort with a 98 Beyer speed figure.
This horse has blossomed into maybe the best sprinter in the whole Mid-Atlantic region. He handled some really nice horses at Parks, including Barron, a horse that recently came back and ran a big race, and he can do it from on the lead. He can do it from off the pace. He fits.
I love the outside draw for this horse today. You're absolutely right. There is some speed down to the inside, but Paco Lopez has got the best seat in the house. He can just take a look down in there and say, okay, you want to go? I've got a horse who will lay and stay in the clear and come running. He's an 11-time winner. He's 6 for 8 this year. He's won his last 5 races in a row. He should be tough.
Must use in any kind of multiple race wager.
Let's move to the outside real quick. The 14, Always in a Hurry. Oh, it's our man Dale Capuano again. But look, this is a horse that's been mixing it up with some runners.
I'm happy to inform you that I think Dale's going to be feeling good, because when I talked to him and I asked him what about post 14, he said it made him sick to his stomach. These scratches move him in a little bit. This horse last time out had an almost impossible task, didn't he? He was running against Wonder Where Craig Is, who was 1-10 and was loose on the lead. This horse looked beat at the 3/8 pole, swung outside, and came with a really determined kick. Impressive kick as well. He'll be running late.
And throw in Jackson Traveler, Eastern Bay, factor it in, who's in very, very good form right now. He's been lining up against some mini monsters for sure. And you're absolutely right. Dale would be happy with the scratches that he got in that race. Let's move on. 11th race, feature of the day, Maryland Million Classic. Dan, I will confidently say this is the best Maryland Million Classic that I've seen, at least in the last 6-7 years. No scratches. It stays together. Let's start with your top pick. This is the 7 Vance Scholars for Dale Capuano. This is a horse that I know Callie Francois likes, that you have on top. I don't even get to him. This is how deep this race is. But let's first check out what Dale has to say about Vance Scholars.
Well, pretty much after that race, we were thinking, Maryland Million's a mile and an eighth. That should be right up his alley. So that, was in the back of my mind, but it's a long time from August to October. Well, in the Turf Cup, he ran phenomenal. I thought it went the first quarter 23 flat, the half and 47. I mean, he was pushed all the way, and, the horses that ran with him, I think, got beat 50 and 60 lengths. He got beat a length. So, I mean, if anything wants to run with him, they may, but it's doubtful they'll be around at the end.
Look, that was a big race. Now, keep in mind, it was on a sloppy track. It was coming off the turf. His 2 really, really big races this year were both off the turf efforts.
It's true, but his race on fast track earlier in his career, I think, are pretty good, and I think he's a lightly raced 3-year-old that's coming into his own. That last race, Dale said it all. He did all the work going a mile and a quarter. I think he kicked on for home a little bit early, about 3.5 furlongs from home, and 2 closers kicked him down, but he was very, very game. I don't think he needs the lead to win. I think Monday Morning Quarterback's going to go. I think Prendimi, the 2 defending champions in this race, by the way, they're going to go. I think he's going to tuck in third with a good spot.
He does. I didn't get to him. I just was concerned about those races maybe being just a little softer than they might appear, being off the turf events. I do land on the 9 to the outside, and that is, if I can turn my page, that is Our Nation on Parade. He was a winner of the Maryland Million Nursery in 2019. Jamie Ness and his owners Happy Got Lucky Stable just dropped $50,000 on this Summit of Cal Nation, and why not? He's a 7-time winner. He's coming off 3 or 2 really, really big races.
I talked to Jamie, and he said not only did he like what this horse was doing before the claim, but he claimed this horse's dam. So he is very familiar with this family. This horse, as you mentioned, is in razor-sharp form. He's going to get a good pace to attack. I'm a little bit concerned about the 1 1/8, but he's one going 1 1/16. He's a major player.
The 9, we do have a little look. We're going to look at this race from August 2nd at Indiana Downs, and this was a 2 other than, and he just rolls right here.
And this is what he's been doing recently. He's getting back to that 2-year-old form that you talked about, because he was a very good 2-year-old before he went to the sidelines. He just buries this group.
He buries this group. This was going 1 1/16. Now, his most recent win was going 7/8 of a mile. No big deal. This is what Jamie does. He claimed this horse going 3/4 of a mile, stretched it out to 1 1/16, got the job done. 31% on the stretch out. Now, here's a stat for Jamie Ness that just boggles my mind. He's 29% with his route horses. That's huge. And we're not talking like 4 or 10 route horses. We're talking 1,029 route horses. He's sitting at 29%. That's unheard of. Let's check in on the 6, the Poser, real quick. This is a horse that is getting good right now. He was only beaten a length in this race last year, and we know this is another guy, Hammy Smith. He likes to win on these big days.
Distance is good for him. He tried very, very hard at Timonium when he was in against Ain't the Beer Cold, and there is a chance that this pace falls apart, and it could fall right into the Poser's hooves.
How about Ain't the Beer Cold? Ain't the Beer Cold is going to do one thing. Ain't the Beer Cold is going to go to the front under Sheldon Russell. There's no doubt in my mind. That puts a little pressure on Vance Scholars. Ain't the Beer Cold gets a little easy lead, he can take this group a long way.
He's also pretty versatile. I like horses that make multiple moves in races. In that race at Timonium, he broke short, he raided back, he got to the outside, he made an early move on the backstretch, and he kept on going. He's in good form.
Yeah, this is a horse that's grown on me a little bit. I was not in love with this horse earlier in his career, but he has shown me, just like you said, a couple different dimensions. So ain't the beer cold in the mix for both of us. Let's move to the nightcap. This is the Maryland Million starter turf mile and a 16th. It was a mile and 8th last year. And we'll start with the 4 Mosler's Image for Mike Trombetta. I don't have the rider change there, but there will be lifetime best and most recent race on the Meadowlands turf.
True, although I will mention this as a caveat. I'm not sure I trust Meadowlands Buyer speed figures. They seem very inflated. And when I talked to Trombetta about it, he was like, where'd that number come from?
Right. Well, I mean, really, when you're running, what do we run, 6 days a year there, it's hard to get any kind of gauge about how anything's playing. But coming off a good effort, I have the 3 Downtown Katy on top for my friend Mikey Gorham. This one's in good form. Coming out of these starter optional 40s, this is class relief all day long for me.
And I got a trip for this horse last time out. Steadied on the rail in the opening furlong, far back behind slow pace, split horses, dropped down inside, finished. She gets a little more pace this time. She's running.
That's going to do it for Dan and myself. It was great to have you here,
it's a
Dan.
pleasure.
It was a fun show. We've got a great day ahead. 37th, Jim McCain, Maryland Million. Spend the day. Have a good time. Stick around for Dave Rodman with scratches and changes. We have a lot of jockey changes on today's card that you're going to want to get. But good luck today and have fun.
Good luck.